All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. How was everybody's evening? Good. Hope you got some rest. Hope you got, we had a good time at the receptions last night. So it was great to see people networking with each other. Before we get started today, we'll close up the conference with some great speakers. The award of the Urshel Award here in just a little bit, and then our final panels. Before we do that, what I'd like to do is recognize my team who works all year with our program advisory committee to put together this conference. And I know just about each and every one of you have probably talked to that team, Kim, Justin, Mayanne, or Catherine, or Emily, or any of a number of folks working on the project. So would you please give them a hand for their hard work? So it's my great pleasure to start today introducing our featured speaker, Mr. Bobby Whitescarver. Bobby has decades of experience in watershed and wildlife habitat restoration. He retired from the USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service in 2011 with 31 years of service. He continues his life work of restoring watersheds through his private consulting company, Whitescarver Natural Resources Management, LLC. He has experience designing and implementing livestock grazing systems that keep livestock out of the streams and provide them with alternate watering systems. He's been involved with over 500 miles of stream bank protection work and helped landowners plant over 500,000 native hardwood trees. Remember that from yesterday. Wildlife habitat is one of Bobby's specialties, as he has helped landowners establish and maintain over 1,000 acres of native prairie and successfully brought back the northern bobwhite to many farms. He is an agronomist, certified nutrient management planner, certified prescribed burn manager, and certified resource management planner. He teaches natural resources management and environmental policy and politics at James Madison University, and as a soil health champion in the National Association of Conservation Districts Network. He is also an author, a farmer, watershed restoration consultant, and an environmental activist. He'll be selling and signing copies of his award-winning book, Swoop Almanac, Stories of Love, Land, and Water in Virginia's Shenandoah Valley, after the presentation of the Urshel Award. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big round of applause to Mr. Bobby Whitescarver.
Good morning. My goodness, it's good to be here with so many passionate and talented environmental leaders in this room. We have a lot of things to be thankful for. Thanks to you, the environmental leaders in this room, I'm going to be able to buy an electric vehicle in Virginia. So I want you to give yourself a round of applause for that. Thanks to you, DEQ has delisted 427 miles of impaired streams. That's pretty impressive. Yeah. And last year, the Chesapeake Bay saw the largest oyster harvest in 35 years. That's thanks to you, farmers have a choice for selling out. You know, we have over 40 land trusts operating in Virginia. And thanks to you, Virginia has the most diverse and extensive BMP program in probably the whole country. I call it BMPs on crack. So I want to thank you for your passion and your leadership in making Virginia a leader in soil and water conservation and renewable energy. Thank you, Kim Conley, and the sponsors for giving me this opportunity, especially Roy Hoagland and Joe Maroon with the Virginia Environmental Endowment. Colonel Gray, thank you for that introduction. Recently, I asked my wife if I was a nerd, and she was very gracious about it. She said, Bobby, just go into the living room and look at the bookshelves. Look at the first one, the one that people look at when they come over, and you'll find your answer there. So I found the answer, and there's a picture of the first bookshelf. Now, you know, I'm really proud to have the 1938 Yearbook of Agriculture. I've also got one of the few copies, a printed copy of the Soil Survey of Augusta County, but not only that, it's a signed copy. And what bookshelf for soil wouldn't be complete without Gary Larson's book, There's a Hair in My Dirt. Now this morning, I want to talk to you about soil, saving farmland, the BMP bottleneck, the Bay Backstop Bill, the stampede heading for a cliff, and our historic transition to renewable energy. Jeannie and I raise all natural beef in the Shenandoah Valley. We have 2 farms. If you've bought beef at Whole Foods in Charlottesville, you might have purchased some of our beef. We used to calve 150 cows a year, and we've downsized right much, but we're still in the livestock business. And it's just Jeannie and I doing the work, and our faithful border collie. And I'm so proud of Jeannie and Val. I did want to show a short video of Val. You know, everybody likes to see a border collie work, right? Well, Steve, can you cue that up for me? So let me explain a little bit. So Jeannie has a philosophy, a good philosophy, that every new experience for a cow or a dog should be a good one. So just recently, we had a severe weather alert, and our heifers, and heifers are cows that have never had a baby before, but they're pregnant. So we have 18 heifers, and the severe weather alert came, and we wanted to have a stall ready in case we needed it. Well, they'd never been in the barn. So what do? So we're going to send Val out to get the heifers, and Jeannie's going to call them in, and you're going to watch the video. Steve, go ahead. Now watch him. He's just like a little speck out there.
Come on.
The years between border collies, that would be me out there doing that, you know.
Easy. Ooh, easy. Right there, live. Down.
Look at that.
On out.
Your kids
Good.
can do that?
Right there, live. Live. Right there, live. down. That'll do. That'll do. Good Lord.
Jeannie and I have 2 farms in the Middle River watershed. One of them's in the upper Middle River watershed. This is a drone shot of our river farm that we put in the CREP program in 2004. So there's now this picture was taken a couple years ago. And so the Middle River flows through that farm for half a mile through the buffer. We fenced the cows out in 2004. Upper Middle River has 2 TMDLs, one for benthic, which means that there's so much sediment in the water that the critters, the good critters can't live, and E. coli. The TMDL states that 94% of the E. coli is due to all livestock. And so now I've lived in this watershed for a couple decades, and I know all the farms in that watershed. And I sampled the river for the Friends of Middle River every month for 4 years. I sample it when the river comes on to us and when the river leaves our farm a half mile later. In the summertime, when the cows are wanting to get in the swimming pool, the E. coli count is consistently over 1,000, sometimes 8,000 colony-forming units per 100 milliliters. But the cool thing, the good thing, is that when it leaves our farm, after just a half a mile of buffer, the E. coli is reduced, on average, by 55%. Just a half a mile. Now think about that. What if we had 5 miles? 25 miles, 100 miles. If we did that, which, we're on our incremental way to do it, we could remove the Shenandoah and the Potomac from the dirty waters list, maybe even the Chesapeake Bay. Now, Virginia has put a lot of money in the upper Middle River watershed. DEQ and DCR both have put money in that watershed. Hired people to go door to door with more than 100% cost share money. The Friends of Middle River have volunteered to take over maintenance. And yet the Middle River, the upper Middle River, is still the most polluted river in the county. Now, you all that know me think I'm pretty successful at getting farmers to fence their cows out of streams. I spent my whole life doing that. But I struck out a lot. And I remember when our team in the Headwaters District, we reached our goal. We had our own personal goal of 40 miles of stream exclusion in 1 year. We had that goal for many years, and finally we made it. And I told everybody to clock out and drive your personal car to the Glover farm where this all took place. And I went to the store and got a bottle of champagne and met everybody down there, and we raised a toast to the farmer and to the team for getting it done. That was a good time, but there were many times not so fun. And it's the Babe Ruth syndrome. Not many people know that he struck out more times than he hit a home run. Sure, we hit some home runs, but we struck out a lot more. I've been kicked off a lot of farms, been called a communist. I've been assaulted more than once. Sued, I was actually sued. One farmer threatened to burn my house down. And one of our young interns was spit on by a farmer. And I've heard many times over my 40 years helping farmers do this, that I'm not gonna do it until you make everybody do it. So, we need the Bay backstop bill. It's time. and it's going to help us delist the Middle River and a lot of other streams, and perhaps even the Chesapeake Bay from the impaired waters list. We bought another farm 3 years ago, enrolled in Virginia's BMP program, fenced the cows out, planted 3,000 trees, and put the farm in a conservation easement. There's Jeannie and Val beside the stream exclusion fence, and now it's got trees in there. And here's Senator Hanger at one of our watering corrals. Now, James Martin and Daryl and Sarah, don't worry. The BMP program didn't pay for that guardrail. The Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay paid the difference between what DCR would have paid and for guardrail. And there's a lot of partnerships that are building in Virginia to help fill in gaps or enhance the incentives or whatever. The Alliance is one of them. The James River Association, the Piedmont Environmental Council, the Alliance for the Shenandoah Valley all have some kind of program to enhance these BMP programs. And for example, we're getting $1,000 an acre for 2 years to hire maintenance companies to come in and maintain our buffers for the first 2 years. And we're grateful for Virginia's BMP program. We've had a BMP program since 1984. And I think Virginia's program is probably the most diverse and robust in perhaps the whole world. We can be proud of that. But the biggest bottleneck in the BMP program is the lack of technical assistance. Soil and water districts can't keep staff because they don't pay them enough. And we don't have enough trained technicians in engineering. So we either need more engineers or we need to have more training for our technicians. When I was a district conservationist, every single field person had job approval authority. And I think we need to get to that point again. Both of our farms are what you'd call a regen farm because they not only produce all natural food, but they produce clean water, clean air, wildlife habitat, and renewable energy. And on a sunny day, our farm on Whiskey Creek powers the whole neighborhood. And, oddly, we're taxed on the land that provides all those ecosystem services. We have a strange system of taxes and incentives. Regen farms and farms with fully implemented resource management plans and those farms like ours that are powerhouses of ecosystem services should not be taxed at all. On the other hand, farms and data centers that pollute and exceed their carrying capacity for nutrients, water, and energy should be taxed higher at a commensurate rate to pay for the cost to clean up their pollution. I read that 80 to 90% of the restoration of the Chesapeake Bay will depend on farmers and farmland. Farmland is also the biggest opportunity to put atmospheric carbon back in the soil. And farmers can do that. Plants sequester carbon all the time, so we need to incentivize the farmer to put crop residues and manures back in the ground to build healthier soil. And I'm extremely excited about the soil health initiatives taking place in Virginia and across the country. USDA and DCR are developing ways to pay farmers to sequester carbon and put it in the soil. After all, the soil is the largest terrestrial carbon sink. And we can measure soil carbon with a soil test. Soil organic matter is carbon. And if there was ever low-hanging fruit for performance-based conservation, it would be for soil organic matter. So we need farmers to restore the bay. We need farmers to sequester carbon, yet we're losing an acre of farmland every 60 seconds, and this is according to the National Resource Inventory. And according to the American Farmland Trust, Rockingham County, our #1 ag county in Virginia, is losing it faster than 1 acre every 60 seconds. I wish there were as many robust incentives for saving farmland as there are for corporations building data and distribution centers and for small modular reactors. Virginia is a unique place. We have lots of deep, well-drained soil. We've got a climate that can support rain-fed agriculture. Many places have exceeded their carrying capacity for water and energy. Is that why the data centers from California are coming to Virginia? These data centers are climate and energy refugees. These data and distribution centers are making some mighty big claims about being green. But the big data doesn't add up to me. Seems to me we're in a stampede heading for the cliff. The recent legislation to just study the impacts of these data centers didn't even get out of committee. Now, Jeannie and I have built 3 solar energy generation plants. You know, it sounds fancy, but, you know, we put up solar panels on 3 different places. And we registered them with a brokerage company that collects our data and sells our solar renewable energy credits. And we've been doing that since 2015. And not a single wreck of ours has been purchased by any entity in Virginia. Somebody else buys them, Pennsylvania or wherever. Virginia relies on conservation easements to protect farmland. But the incentive package to do so pales in comparison to the incentive package for Amazon, data centers, and Dominion. We need to protect a lot more farmland to be sustainable in Virginia. Last year, Jeannie and I completed the obstacle course to put an easement on our 150-acre farm on Whiskey Creek. It's very complicated, and it cost us $30,000 up front to do that, $30,000. Now, 30 grand doesn't sound like much, but to us, that was a lot of money. And, you know, so much so if we didn't have it in our heart to protect that farm forever, we probably would have thrown in the towel. We expect farmland to save the bay and save the planet from the climate crisis, but we have a regressive, punitive way of saving farmland. 30,000 is a pittance compared to 30 billion for small modular reactors. When we were searching for a land trust to protect our farm forever, we sent out inquiries. One of them wrote back, "Your farm doesn't have any conservation value." Now, you can imagine my disappointment. And from a soil nerd, you know, my first reaction was, are you kidding? Every acre of open land is able to absorb rain and let it recharge the groundwater. Any square foot can do that. So we need to be protecting a lot more of that. The soil is the regulator. Now, you hydrologists are here, you know. The soil is the regulator of the entire hydrologic cycle. And we need to have as many incentives to protect those acres from development as we do to convert it to McMansions and data centers. Now, one of the biggest land use issues facing us now is utility scale solar. And my number one rule for utility scale solar is, first and foremost, we need to put it on rooftop and brownfields and landfills, so forth, not on farmland. But you know, that farmer might need that income to stay in business. And you know, I consult with utility scale companies and with local governments on utility scale solar. And I got a checklist of must-haves. And it goes like this: screening, buffers, setbacks, dual use with ag, marginal soils. It has to have a decommissioning clause. Take the high road on E&S and stormwater. Don't clear cut native forests to build them, and avoid prime and statewide important soil. And make sure it qualifies for the DEQ and DCR Pollinator Smart Program. That's my checklist. And I tell them to treat solar panels as impervious. Everybody knows a solar panel is impervious. And, you know, a 2-year storm isn't a 2-year storm anymore. So let's go bigger. Let's take the high road on E&S. Now, I've been to a lot of public hearings on utility scale, so don't y'all love public hearings? The real emotion comes out. And it, you know, really boils down to two issues with utility scale solar. One, it's going to ruin my view. Well, you know, that's kind of a non-issue. It's not their land. I wish I got paid for the view we provide, you know. And number two, why don't you put it on all the big buildings? Now, that's a legitimate question. So we got a dilemma. Big roof, no panels. And I think that dilemma is just as big and just as bad as the big chicken, no land dilemma. It creates problems for everybody downstream. I want to share a story with you that happened in Augusta County. And I consulted on this job. This is the Bocock Farm in Stewart's Draft. What do you see there? Now, this is a Google shot. You see gullies and bare soil, bare ground. So Mr. Bocock wanted to take his 800-acre farm. That's, by the way, he had been strategically splitting off lots, unbeknownst to a lot of other, unbeknownst to the neighbors. But the farmer that's renting this farm not doing a very good job. We don't like to see bare ground. I'll show you the soils. A Chilhowie silt loam. It's one of the most erosive soils in Augusta County, made from shale. It's got a soil tolerance level of 2, which is the lowest. It's the most vulnerable soil in the county. 70% of the soils on this 800-acre farm are land capability class 3 or above, which means it has severe limitations. Now, I would call this marginal soil, marginal farmland. And the solar company did everything more than the county ordinance. Now, the county's got a great ordinance on utility scale solar. And so, they have the decommissioning, the screening, the buffers, and they treat the solar panels as impervious. You have to, and on and on. I was supporting this project. Guess who was against it? The Bird Club. And all the neighbors, of course. But I got a call from the president of the Bird Club. We've seen horned larks there. I said, Penny, of course you have. Horned larks like bare ground in the wintertime. My other nerd universe is birding. Now, what happened? What happened? The developer withdrew their application because they didn't have the votes on the Board of Supervisors to approve the project. So that didn't happen. So now what's going to happen to that farm is it's going to turn into McMansions. Now, which would the neighbors rather have? Look at McMansions, which is, by the way, the most costly form of real estate for any locality, because the McMansion people refuse to pay for all the services they want. So now we're going to have McMansions there. And in gigantic irony, less than a half a mile from that farm, Amazon built a 1 million square foot distribution center, not one solar panel planned on either the building or the parking lot. Isn't that ironic? You know, and I'm sorry to lean in on a few ironic things, but you know, right now we're in a huge transition to renewable energy. We're on our way. It's going to happen in your lifetime. We're going to do it. Frack gas pipelines are so not needed. It wastes precious time and resources. The Mountain Valley Pipeline needs to go away. And right now, the definition of waters of the United States is, it's going through its eternal, ephemeral definition between the hydrologists, who ought to define it, politicians, lawyers, and judges. It's been going on since 1972. Everybody in this room, we're accustomed to, now I'm not a working bureaucrat anymore. I'm a recovering bureaucrat. And we're so used to incremental change. Now we're, it's all positive change, but it happens so slow. We've had all these Chesapeake Bay agreements. We've never met a single one, but we made progress every single one. We're still making progress. But I'm here to tell you, climate change is no longer happening at a snail pace. So we need to kick it up. We do. In a time when we have atmospheric rivers, bomb cycle, I never heard of those things. Rising seas. We need the Clean Economy Act. We need RGGI. It's working, and it's lifting up the underserved and protecting vulnerable communities from flooding. Your next car needs to be electric. Farmers are going to use their crops to sequester carbon and put it in the soil. We're going to exclude cattle from the streams, and we're going to stop the stampede of big data. We'll create greater incentives to save farmland, and we'll have solar panels on every new building. And we'll have an updated Chesapeake Bay TMDL that includes climate change and temperature. And the magic of all this progress, the magic of all that happens through people and partnerships that are right here in this room. And I'm going to conclude now with some famous words that I've changed just a little bit to update them. To every person, there comes a time in your lifetime, that special moment when you are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered a chance to do a very special thing, unique to you and fitted to your talents. What a tragedy if that moment finds you unprepared or unwilling to perform in what would be your finest hour. Ladies and gentlemen, our finest hour is now. And that special person is you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have time for a couple of questions for Bobby. If you would make your way up to one of the microphones here on either side so that we can capture your question and your answer to the whole audience. Thank you.
Okay, there's no questions. Yes.
I'm not going to make my way up to the microphone. I'm curious, you said it cost you $30,000 to put your farm into a conservation easement?
Yes, ma'am.
So have you seen any benefits after your $30,000?
Yes, and I forgot to mention that. We used our tax credits. We cashed in most of them to pay for part of the debt for buying the farm. Yes. And we're very grateful for that. But my point was we need to make it a little less complicated and maybe provide some better incentives for people. You know, it's probably more confusing than it is expensive to put a conservation easement on your farm. It's just too complicated. Yeah, thank you for that question. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much.
Don't get to escape quite yet. Come back out here.
Okay.
Bobby, thanks very much, not only for your great insights on some very compelling issues, you make a great case for that, but more importantly, the inspiration and the motivation for us to take action. So just a small token of appreciation.
Thank you very much.
For coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.